on the new trajectory.
Closed captioning's turned on, and then we're going to record. Councilor Andrade, I believe we're ready, other than I'm going to go through and get all the screens working. But go ahead and get started if you want, and maybe introduce and then do introductions of everybody.
Yes, that would be awesome. Thank you, Chris. Welcome everyone to the Inclusivity Committee meeting. It is February 28th, 2023, 5:36 p.m. And yeah, if we want to go around and introduce ourselves, I'll start. I'm Councilor Jessica Andrade, and I was the, we'll go into the structure of the committee, but for those who weren't here previously, I was the council co-chair, so I'll at least be facilitating the meeting until we choose our new co-chair. So anyway, I don't know if people want to chime in on Zoom first, perhaps?
Okay. I'm Nora Smith. I'm a longtime resident here in Philomath, and yes, Diane Crocker taught my children in school. And so I just read about the meeting and the flyer or whatever they send out with the water bill, and so I asked about it. So that's how I got here.
Thank you.
I guess I can chime in. My name is Christopher McMorrin. I'm also on the city council now, but I was on this committee before I joined the city council too. And Diane Crocker taught me. So that's fun. And I don't know, anything else anyone needs to know about me? Well, you can ask me questions. Well, not right now.
Thank you. Sina?
I'm Zena Allen. I guess I've been part of this committee, I don't know, a few years. And I live in the rural boundary, so I guess my address is Philomath, but I technically am not a member of Philomath. It's weird. Yeah.
Okay.
You're part of the Philomath community.
Yes.
And then I know you can't see it in the room, or I think on YouTube, but Rose, if you're able to talk, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi there. I'm still at work, so I am going to be on mute until I get home. I'm Rose Bricker. I've been a Philomath resident for almost 7 years now.
Thank you, Rose. Do you want to go around in the room now?
Van Hunsaker. I've been on the committee as an unofficial member since last year sometime. Lived here for 36 years and to be the mayor, and I'm on the planning commission also right now. Guess that's about it for now.
I am Jane Sherwood, and I'm new to Philomath. I've been here a little over a year and a half. I went through the Citizens Academy and had lots of fun learning about the community. And so when I saw the little advertisement, I jumped right in there to see if I could learn some more. So here I am.
I'm Oriana Militaro. I use they, them, and she, her pronouns. I have been in Philomath since 2015, and I was not taught by Diane.
No.
No. So, can you spell your last name for me? Mulatero.
Thank you.
And I am Diane Crocker, and I was a teacher here in Philomath for 40 years, so I did teach a whole lot of people. I am also a brand new city council. This is my first inclusivity meeting, so I have a lot to learn. I have an interest. I have children that identify LBGT, whatever. And they're, see, right there, I already said whatever, but anyway. And I also have a heart for the homeless, and I run a program for them in my spare time.
And I'm Chris Workman. I'm the city manager. I've been in town for 9 years now. And my kids have all had Diane Crocker as a teacher. My wife co-taught with Diane last year in the choir, in the middle school, in the primary school. And yeah, glad to be here. I've been working with the Inclusivity Committee since it started, mostly at the staff level. So I help coordinate getting the agenda set, getting minutes out to everybody ahead of time, and then just help facilitate the meetings, try to provide insights when I can, but I'm here to learn like everybody else.
Thank you. Yes, this is always going to be a space of learning, and hopefully one in which we can all gain additional empathy and understanding of one another. So now we'll move on to the minutes from our last meeting, which was so long ago, October 25th, 2022. And I'll get into this momentarily, but we operate by consensus, so there's no need for votes or motions, but basically, if there is anything that you see, I think should be changed, please go ahead and say so now, and we can agree by consensus whether to include it or not. So if there aren't any suggested edits, then we can pass that. Okay. I don't see any changes, so we will approve those minutes. Next, we have a section called urgent business, which is if anyone wishes to bring something up that they believe is urgent for us to talk about that supersedes any business that we have planned, to please do so now. Chris?
I have something very quick. I'll send an email out. I wanted to do it today and didn't. I got a Facebook post up, but if you go to the city's Facebook page, look at the Facebook post, and I'll email you the link. There's a video that just got completed by some local filmmakers on Reuben Shipley, and it goes back to the story. It's about a 15-minute segment, really nicely done. It's got a lot of the backstory, and then it has a lot of footage of the dedication of the historic marker that was done. There's a nice cameo by our very own Jessica Andrade. The mayor's in there, several other folks that spoke during that dedication ceremony. So it's very well done. We plan to continue to promote and kind of highlight that video. And Eric Neiman is kind of pushing, was I think kind of the brainchild behind moving that project forward. And he's looking at some different ways to promote that video as well, not just within Philomath, but throughout the state. It's just a great story. So if you didn't see the Facebook page yet, go there, hit the link. It's a great 15 minutes.
Thank you, Chris.
You bet.
I see Rose's hand is raised.
So I wanted to let you all know that Philomath Pride is happening again in 2023. We are going to be hosting a planning meeting on March 13th from 6 to 7 at the Philomath Library. It's going to be the first planning meeting, so please tell your friends. We're trying to encourage everyone to share it within their safe circles. And then the actual date of the event is going to be on June 11th. And I have the Randy Kugler shelter, I think it's called. Community Center, whatever it's called. I have that reserved, and the event will be from 1 to 4.
That's awesome news. Thank you, Rose.
Rose, I'm so sorry. Can you just one more time say when the initial meeting was?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath.
Oh no, you're good. And if you want to just, I mean, if it's easier, just like email after the meeting or something, that works.
No worries. It's March 13th at
Okay.
the Philomath Library from 6 to 7.
March 13th, 6 to 7.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the actual event again is Sunday, June 11th from 1 to 4.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
And then Rose, I might follow up with you later too. We talked a little bit in our city council meeting last night about trying to find a way to provide more city funding for these types of community building events. So obviously the way government works, that might take a while, and we might not be able to do that this budget cycle, but now that I'm on the council, I'm very invested in making that happen. So I'd love to get your input on that so I can follow up with you.
Fantastic. I think if I could wave my magic wand and get what I want, we would at least get some inclusivity committee participation or help with planning, and then hopefully move it on to the city in the next years, because this is just the second annual.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Cool beans. Okay, so now we will move on to business. And once again, welcome everyone. New and returning members, official and unofficial inclusivity committee members. I'll just try to summarize what I wrote in the agenda item summary for this. Basically, we're a committee that operates very differently from other community committees. We operate by consensus, and everyone who wants to participate can participate. So there currently we don't have all 9 members, official committee members. We have some vacancies, but that's okay. The point, I guess, let me back it up a little, sorry. So the reason why we have to have official inclusivity committee members in the first place is because legally, due to Oregon public meeting laws, we have to know who is like on the committee in order to be able to call a meeting to order in the first place. So we have to have a quorum, and for those who don't know, a quorum is one additional person over the 50%. So we have 8 members, I believe, 8 official committee members, and so a quorum would be 5. So we definitely have a quorum today. There's no special powers granted to official committee members versus unofficial. The thing about being an official inclusivity committee member is that you're going to, the thought is that they are more likely to attend more regularly, and therefore we're more likely to be able to have a quorum and be able to have a meeting in the first place. We had decided as a committee that we wanted to have this be a community-led group. So trying to put more power in the unelected, the people who aren't elected officials. So we have co-chairs, one person who is not an elected official and one who is. And the elected official is meant to be a static co-chair, like to help maintain stability over time with the years and everything. And then the co-chair position for people who are not elected officials is meant to be on a rotational volunteer basis. that happens every month, or at the end of last year, we started talking about potentially restructuring to maybe having it every couple months, or maybe even changing it to a single chair of the community. But that's something we can talk about later. Currently, the way I have seen my position as being the council co-chair has been to try to empower whoever is the volunteer co-chair as best as possible, to be able to do what they want to do. So it's turned out that a lot of the time I have done a lot of the writing and coming up with the agenda item summaries, and then usually although both co-chairs have talked and planned before each meeting as well, then I usually write the stuff, and then usually the co-chair ends up facilitating the meeting, and then I chime in when needed. But it's always different, depending on what the volunteer co-chair wants and needs from me to be successful. So I hope that kind of makes sense. It's a little complicated. Basically, we have, let's see, trying to remind myself. As I said, no formal motions or voting, so trying to be relaxed here. We have done things like reviewed and provided suggested edits to City Council on multiple proclamations and resolutions. We did so also for our social services agency funding policy, and we've supported events like the Shipley Family Homestead Oregon Historical Marker Ceremony that Chris had just spoke about, and the Veterans Day presentation, Jumping into Fire by Dr. Robert Bartlett. And so we have also created a list of objectives and goals that we wish to accomplish as a committee, and we will be talking about that later in the new business, or in our business section. Does anyone have any questions about how things are structured and what the role is moving forward? Rose?
Yeah, could you go over if people wanted to become a committee member, like that process?
Yeah. So people can just come, but if people were interested in taking a more if they were sure that they would be able to come on a more consistent basis, then they could apply for official committee membership. So they would be one of the people committing to come regularly so that we can have a quorum to have the meeting. And those applications are usually open in like November. Is that correct, Chris?
Yeah.
And the city advertises those through the monthly newsletter, and other places where they normally post things on the city's website, Facebook, library, etc. And then the city appoints people, and we ended up having additional vacancies. So then we opened up the committee applications again for a little bit longer this last year. And we still have a vacancy, but that's okay because we still have a lot of people. Does that answer your question, Rose?
So I'm wondering, are you still looking for someone to fill that vacancy?
Yeah. It's been up to 6 at-large community members, but we're happy for people to apply regardless, so that it's easier to hold a meeting if people are out of town and such.
It sounds like Rose might be interested. I think we should encourage Rose to fill out the application and join.
I think you're right.
Yay.
I had a quick question, which may be a broader question for Chris. Just as far as sort of that committee application process, I know like for county committees, you can just apply anytime, even if they're not looking for someone. And then as soon as they have a vacancy, they have like a stack of resumes that they just pull from and then contact you and they're like, are you still into this? And so it kind of helps speed that process of like, then we don't have to wait a couple months to fill a vacancy. So that might not be a discussion for this committee right now. I guess it was just maybe something the city could consider for these committees is just accept applications on a rolling basis. And then when vacancies occur, we're more prepped to fill them. But sorry, that's just a little thought.
Thank you. It's a good thing to think about. Zena?
Yeah, for some reason, I was also under the impression that somebody could just fill out an application whenever. And it was kind of a just, show up consistently kind of thing and be willing to participate. Also, Rose, I had no idea you were not officially a member because you've been doing so many things. So hopefully you do.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. And so now that we've kind of gone over this, we should appoint a at least a council co-chair for this year. And then I don't know depending on who it is, if they want to take over for the meeting. And then I don't know if we want to volunteer co-chair to Chris, how do you suggest we pursue this?
Maybe if I could, Councilor Andrade, I just have a couple thoughts that I'll share with the group. It's just a kind of a governance side of things, which is a slimy way of saying I have some strong recommendations. I think that, I guess the question would be, how does the group, especially those that have been attending over the last year or so, feel about the co-chair situation? I totally understand the benefits that we're trying to get. In walks Rose Bricker. Welcome.
Maybe our newest member.
So I understand the desire to help the non-elected volunteers to take a kind of a leadership position on a rotating basis, and there's benefits to that. Functionally, on the backside of that, I see the difficulty and some of the strain that puts on those volunteers when they volunteer to do that, of feeling like they're supposed to be memos and putting added pressure on them for some timelines when things need to get to staff so we can get the packet put together and get the packet out to everybody in a timely manner. And there's kind of this back end side of it that sometimes puts a little bit of undue pressure on those co-chairs, and maybe either they don't understand that's what they signed up for, and then they kind of get that added pressure on them. So then you always feel kind of bad. And I know Councilor Andrade does a very good job of like picking up the slack, but then that puts extra pressure on Councilor Andrade because maybe things that she thought the co-chair was going to do, they don't do, and then she ends up having to do it, and then staff's waiting, and it just creates a little bit of a stressful situation, which we're trying to avoid. So if the co-chair is still helpful, and everybody kind of knows what that expectation is, I don't have a problem with it. If the co-chairs become more work than maybe what it's worth and what it's benefiting, then I would suggest we maybe consider just having a chairperson, and that could be a member of the council or not a member of the council, but to just have a chair of this committee like many of our other committees run, and that person knows what they're signing up for. Staff's got one point of contact, and maybe it simplifies the process. So I'm not advocating one way or another. It's just something I've seen over the last couple of years and want to put on the table for consideration.
Yeah, I thank you for that. I can just say that for me, it's been more of I haven't been able to connect with whoever the volunteer co-chair is early enough, usually. like early enough in the process before the next meeting. And so then that compresses everything. But other than that, sorry, I couldn't tell if that was Oriana's or Diane's hand.
Yeah. I was asking who was your co-chair?
Oh, it rotated, so it was everyone.
Oh, that makes it much more difficult, I would think. And I just know in leadership things, it's really nice to have co-chairs because you share the responsibility, but I think it's easier to get things done if it's just one person. So that's just my 2 cents.
A question.
Thank you.
Can anybody place items on the agenda, or is it only really up to co-chairs to?
Oh, yeah, no, at the very end of the meeting, we take, well, either during the meeting, if someone comes up with something, then like, oh yeah, let's put that on the agenda, everyone agrees. Otherwise, at the very end of the meeting, we take topics for suggestion.
I think if the purpose of the co-chair model is to empower community members, there's empowerment in just being able to foster a community of empowerment and speaking up and voicing your opinions and placing things on agendas for discussion, rather than the administrative task, just a little bit more onerous, I think, on volunteer members.
Okay, thank you. Christopher?
This, I think, was an idea I maybe pitched last year too, and it might be the best of both worlds. It also might easily be the worst of both worlds, so I'm not super attached to it. But was just the idea of like keeping the co-chair thing, but making it be like a term of like 6 months or something, so you have some stability of like, okay, I know I'm in charge of this for the next 6 months. I can kind of plan out, you know, like if we don't get it done this meeting, I'm still going to be, you know, chairing the next meeting, and it offers some stability while still allowing it to kind of rotate, you know, around and have multiple voices be, and maybe it's 4 months, maybe it's 8 months. I don't know, you know, just somewhere in between. So it's not every meeting is a new person, but it's also not just one person all the time. Just a thought, whatever the committee thinks on that.
Thank you.
I like that.
Are there any other thoughts about this from other people?
Oh, I get.
Van?
Yeah, well, I guess for right now, so that we can get through to the other business, maybe if I understood you correctly in the beginning, that we need to appoint a chair. Maybe we do that tonight, and then I think there's been several different ideas and thoughts given that maybe on the next meeting, make a decision about what the co-chair would do or who they would be or whatever. But just do the chair tonight, and then that way, then we can move on to the next agenda item. Unless I don't see a strong opinion one way or another, but I mean, some good ideas have been put out there.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Let me ask real quick, show of hands. Who doesn't know what they think yet, or doesn't mind either way?
I feel like I know what I think, but I don't mind either way.
Okay. That looked like the majority. I think that was 4 people. There's 8 of us. Or who would like to vote for a chair tonight?
There's 9 of us.
A council chair or a co-chair volunteer?
I think the decision of a chair is going to be dependent upon whether there's a co-chair or not. So
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll try to simplify it a little bit. This is where I put on the administrative hat a little bit. Is there anybody who's opposed to Christopher Moran's idea to do a 6-month, I'm going to make this your idea, Christopher, a 6-month co-chair that would then rotate every 6 months? And that would be a co-chair position. You know what you're signed up for, and you know it's 6 months.
You're committed to meeting with the chair.
I
Yep.
kind of like, for equal opportunity, doing a 3-month.
A 3-month?
So every 3 months.
Okay. So 3 months. Is there anybody opposed to a 3-month co-chair position?
No, but I would just say, yeah, 3 months makes a lot more sense. And given, like, say how the year works, so maybe there's people who would like to chair for certain times or like certain events such as Juneteenth or Black History Month, things like that, you know, just during those, just having more flexibility and less burnout.
Yeah, and some people just have busier times of their lives and, you know, times of the year that they have more, you know, more capacity or whatever. So, okay, well, I'm gonna, Councilor Andrade, I want to flip that out. If you want to ask for consensus on that, I think we're there.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. Anyone opposed to that at all? Okay, cool. Thank you for that, everyone. And now for the actual co-chair positions. Does anyone want to volunteer themselves?
And I just want to clarify, I can't do that anymore, right?
No, so we have to have a council co-chair and we have to have
That's what we were doing. All right.
Volunteer.
someone for the next 3 months, volunteer co-chair. So I guess that would be March, April, May.
So the council co-chair would be either Christopher McMorrin, Jessica Andrade, or Diane Crocker. They're the council members that are assigned to the Inclusivity Committee from the council. So one of them would serve as the council co-chair, and then one of the volunteer members on the committee would serve as the volunteer co-chair. And I don't know, Councilor Andrade or the group, I guess, if there's any strong feelings, wonder if that council co-chair even has to be an actual committee member. I think if a member of the public says they'd like to do it for 3 months, I don't know, again, we don't have any bylaws or anything that says they'd have to be a member of the committee. They could just be a participant of the committee that wants to co-chair for 3 months.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I was just thinking again to the static. I wasn't sure if you had meant a static position still for like a year plus the 3 month. But yeah, if people want to do 3 month co-chair positions, we can do that.
Open
to everyone.
Yeah, my recommendation is the council co-chair would be at least a year position, but the volunteer co-chair would be a 3 month position. As a council members, you know what you signed up for. You got elected, so I'm less worried about getting burned out.
Well, yeah, no, well, I thought you had just said that maybe you'd have two co-chairs, volunteer co-chairs.
No, sorry, I meant one council co-chair that would serve for a year, and then one volunteer co-chair. That volunteer co-chair could be a member of the committee that was selected by the city council, or they could.
Yes, no, sorry. No, that is exactly how it's meant to be. Any official or unofficial committee members are welcome to be co-chairs.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
Do I have to be called on? I don't know how this works.
You go ahead.
With the Zoom, it's easier to be called on, just so you have multiple people.
I tend to be a goal-oriented person that wants to get something done, and I may not fit well within this, and that's fine. I'm flexible. I just like to get stuff done. I'm worried that if we are switching chairs around and having to discuss for 30 minutes who's going to be the next chair, that's maybe not the best use of our time. I'm fine with doing it for 3 months. I'm fine. I'm very, very flexible. I can work with whatever. I would just like to see us accomplish some good for the community.
Yes, I think, thank you. I think that we had agreed 1 year co-chair, 3 month rotational co-chair who isn't an elected official. Christopher.
I guess I was just on the note of getting something done then. I know we don't really make motions, but I would move that Councilor Andrade remain as the council co-chair for a year. And then we can work on finding our first, and maybe we could line up a second, so starting in whatever that would be, May, then you'd be up. I feel like that might be helpful if we can, get someone committed before May. So I guess that's what I would propose, because I think Councilor Andrade obviously, has the most experience chairing this, and I think I'm open to having other counselors be a co-chair in the future. But I think, just to get us off on a stable start, I'd like to have her continue, and then our community members, if you're interested, it would be wonderful to have you step up for one of those other co-chair positions for the next 6 months, one of the two. So yes, that would be my not a motion.
Thank you, Christopher. Unless anyone has any objections to that, I am happy to continue as co-chair.
I'm seeing all the heads nodding in the appropriate up and down direction. So I think
Thank you.
I think we've got.
It's a little difficult to see head movements from here.
Do you want to ask for a volunteer co-chair for the next 3 months?
Yes, that would be great. Any volunteers?
Okay, I will jump in there.
Jane will do it.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you, Jane. Well, I'll reach out to you later.
Okay.
With Chris.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, cool. If it's okay, if I could just chair this meeting, just since I have everything, that would be great. Christopher?
Well, I guess I just wanted to check if any of the other community members were interested in preemptively signing.
Sorry. Thank you. I just all of a sudden was thinking back to the end of last year of just like, okay, someone please volunteer. So, sigh of relief. Is there anyone else who would like to volunteer?
I would be interested in the following 3 months.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ariana. Awesome. I'm a little rusty at this. Thank you for bearing with me. So, okay, let's move on to updates and announcements. So we had some resignations and appointments, and you are all here, and thank you. Although we are missing Lori Lehman. Happy birthday, Lori. Hopefully we'll see her next time. And so for those of you who don't know, there's this organization called the COG, the Oregon Council Cascade West
Council of
Governments.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I always get the C's mixed up. And basically it's meant for Benton, Lincoln, and Lynn counties. A resource group, work together, do things together, and Corvallis had money that they invested in. They talked about it with the COG and members of the COG, Philomath being one of those members, and to go towards social justice related things. And what they came up with was investigating in a regional bias response initiative, potentially a program of some sort. And so they had a bunch of surveys excuse me, what's the word?
Focus groups.
Thank you, focus groups. They had a bunch of focus groups, and then a survey that they gave to people who work for cities, and then they had this bias response summit and attached it. All the reason for the large packet is because of the slides. We're not going to go over it. I just wanted to give that as information in case you were interested and wanted to learn more about it. I just found out because I wasn't on the email list somehow. But they came out with a draft report, and they just took comments from that draft report, and that ended on Friday. And so I'll be coming back to you with the final report and any other kinds of ways to participate if there are any. So any questions on those things?
I'm not sure it's a question, but Alicia Lucky, who was on this and ran this, she passed this on to me, and she said if there's any way that she can help, she's willing to do that. So if you ever want to utilize her as a guest speaker or explain the project or something like that, that would be something to do.
Thank you. We'll consider that. And so for announcements, I included some information on International Day of Persons with Disabilities. That was something that we had wanted to create a Facebook post, informational post about, and I don't think it ever got posted. And we weren't able to talk about it because we haven't had a meeting since October. So I just wanted to include that here in case people wanted to learn more about it. It was on December 3rd of last year. Also, happy Black History Month. It is the last day, unfortunately. I wish that our timeline could have been a bit better so that we could actually do something this month, hopefully next year.
We kind of did. We posted a Facebook post about the Shipley, Reuben Shipley marker dedication. That went out they released at 12 o'clock today, the last day of Black History Month. So we just caught the tail end of it. I'm checking the box. Not that we do it to check the box, but you know, we'll do better next year, I guess is what I'm saying.
Zena?
Yeah, I definitely hope that we can, I don't know, do more things for those, not just because I work at a disability equity center, but I hope that we can do more for Black History Month. And we've put on some amazing events, and I think that if we just get our timing down, so I think it's important for us to really get it in the calendar, so then we can line up speakers or people, or, you know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Are we?
Diane?
Yes. Are we able to just, in the future, if you know there's programs going on, is there a trick to getting it on our Facebook page, or can we just put it on there to announce it to other people so other people will know and can go?
So I sent an email to the city recorder to ask for her advice about sharing information internally with the group. And I'll ask her about that as well. Typically in the past, I have sent her some things that she has put onto the Facebook page, but I don't know if she would appreciate that coming from from a bunch of different sources, or if she'd rather have it funneled through a particular person. Does that sound like a good idea, Chris?
I was just gonna say, just funnel it through me. So rather than going through it, just send it to me. If you know an event and something you want to put on Facebook, send it to me. I'll kind of give it a little sniff test to see if I feel like it's a community event, you know, can be open to the public, all those types of things. We also look for stuff relevant to Philomath. If they're doing an event up in Portland, we may not promote it, but if it's happening in Benton County or even Albany, if it's something that the COG is doing, we would support it and post on it. So just send it to me and I'll put it on the Facebook, and I can get in a better habit of, and if you remind me when you send it to me, to distribute it out to this group, because again, I know each of you have your own social networks as well that you can help push stuff out to. So just remind me, hey, could you put this on Facebook and send it out to the Inclusivity Committee, and I'll get right on it.
Thank you. Zena?
I think that if we can do more like networking, like we've done obviously for the Shipley event or the Veterans Day, I would love to see us working with more community members and organizations in our community to kind of, I think it's great that we're putting it on our social media, but I think that we could have more engagement and more interaction than just that.
Agreed. Thank you. Okay. Really quickly, with Black History Month, by the way, there's a link to the government's website that has links to online exhibits, documentaries, and so much more celebrating Black history. Highly recommend taking a look at it. It's pretty awesome. For those of you who were unable to attend or watch the Veterans Day event, Jumping into Fire by Dr. Robert Bartlett was a fantastic presentation. The whole event was recorded. So if you only wanted to view the presentation, that begins at about 45 minutes into the YouTube link that we have posted here in the meeting packet. And thank you both to Dr. Bartlett and to Zena for Dr. Bartlett for speaking, Zena for making the awesome birthday card for JJ Corbett, the last of the living members of the Triple Nickels. It was a beautiful card, and it was just really great. Thank you. And then finally, the 2022 Champinafu series with the library hosts a series about the Champinafu people, and they have links on their YouTube, I think it is, for those events, so we can watch the recordings if you're interested. So that is it for updates and announcements. Is there any more questions?
Aren't the Selettes I'm trying to think the right words. They have been tied closely with Philomath High School and have allowed the Warriors and the Braves to continue to be our mascot. They have approved that. We have some of their members that are graduates of Philomath. It seems like that should be maybe a strong connection for us. Ron is what I was saying. Maybe.
So we let's talk about that when we get to our committee priorities. I just want to do a time check really quickly. It is 6:24, and usually our meetings go until 7. So let's see. We're supposed to talk about training and the budget. And I think that Chris, that we should probably start with that, since starting the budget is, since we need to get things into the budget soon, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure I shouldn't skip to committee priorities. Okay, so we have long wanted to do some sort of equity, diversity, inclusion training, and we haven't been able to get anywhere with that yet. We've tried both ways of thinking about what kinds of trainings we would like to see first. And we've also looked at potential people or companies or whatever to go with for training. So listed here as some budget information. So this, I don't think anything has changed since then, but I forgot to check with the finance director. But as of October, we had $8,330 available for this fiscal year. We had set aside $10,000 for this, and I don't know if we'll be able to. I kind of feel like we probably won't be able to get training together by the end of this fiscal year, which ends in June, I believe. But I guess one of the things would be, do we think $10,000 is enough? Is that something we should ask for the budget for this next coming fiscal year? And then also, what kinds of trainings are we hoping for? Is there a certain, do people have thoughts on any of these that have been presented in the meeting packet? Or any other additional ideas about how to proceed with training? Van?
Yeah, I looked at these and I actually made a couple of contacts. One of the suggestions was working with the city of Corvallis. Now, I haven't talked to the top person, but the person that actually does their training, they don't work with Soul Force Education anymore, and they hired their own trainer. And she said she's fine with doing whatever, but it wouldn't be up to her as far as working with another community. She was hired to work with the city of Corvallis. So, and she said she'd do what she could, but she's fairly new, and so I'm sure their priority is going to be on the city of Corvallis. Mm-hmm. The one here with the working with Western Oregon University, that sort of thing seems like a good idea. They've worked with the League of Oregon Cities, and they do have different options of what you do. And it seems like they would work with us to, come up with a plan of what we want to have the training about. It wouldn't just be simple. I mean, they have a thing that you can go on, that's mentioned in here with a 6-week Zoom course, and then they can do a 1 day, 6-hour course. So there's, that makes for a lot of variety of what can be done. And to me, that flexibility, given our situation where we haven't done it before, that might give us a chance to tailor to whatever we decide it needs to be. And I don't know that we know what that is right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Zena?
I've done lots of networking around this and know lots of people that would be willing to come in and give us a hand. I do think, again, this is a great opportunity for us to connect with organizations in our community. And I've been through several trainings at this point, and some have worked a lot better than others. I think it's very important for us to determine what it is we're trying to get out of this training, and then kind of, are some of these organizations going to provide that better than others? And some of it has gone a lot, better than others. I think that when it comes to like race and equity training, we want to find the right fit. So
definitely.
And we're not Corvallis, we're Philomath, so we might have different agendas or ideas.
Thank you. I will say, Nora?
Well, I just wanted to say that at the Philomath High School recently, we had someone, her name is Marianne I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, Kvetje. And she is an equity coordinator. Anyway, I just wanted to mention her. She came in and we just did a 2-hour session, but she was very good. And I think she would be willing to, or, I have her phone number.
Awesome.
That's an, If
Thank
you'd
you.
like, yes.
Can I add some clarification on who the target audience is? It's not this committee, it's the entire
Yeah.
city of Philomath and council.
Yeah, thank you. So it's nebulous. Council hasn't quite given us direction on that either. But the core, my impression, and Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the priority is city council and staff. And then if there are, depending on what the training is like and whether it's like recorded or live streamed or something like that, then maybe the inclusivity committee and or members of the public can view that. Does that sound about right, Chris, or am I completely missing the mark?
Yeah, if you're going back to the budget discussion about putting the $10,000 in the budget, it was geared towards, training that the city council and staff could take part in. I think the thought was some type of a workshop or an all day or half day kind of thing that would target that. But then there's always been an effort to do these like learning opportunities like we did at the Triple Nichols presentation and these others where we have kind of learning and growth opportunities for the community that everybody's welcome to. But what we're talking about right now specifically would be some type of a workshop or a seminar or something like that targeted at council members, staff, and then again, depending on how the cost breaks down, sometimes they charge a flat fee and they'll just charge and it's whoever can come, you fill the room. And in that case, I think we'd open up to our committees, our planning commissioners, our boards, and then get a head count. And then if we went from there, we could open up to other organizations if they want to come. But I think it's still very different than open up to the general public. I think it would be targeted at you're an elected official, you're an appointed official, you're in a leadership capacity of some sort, you're on a city committee of some sort. We want to make sure that we can point to and say, hey, we've gone over some training, we've helped, kind of cover this and kind of get everybody at least on that same level of kind of basic understanding for DEI.
And follow up then, since that's the target audience, because part of the discussion is like what the training should be. Is there an understanding of people's levels of education on equity, diversity, inclusion on the council and in the city council?
My opinion is they were assuming that people are starting
From zero.
at the beginning, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Zena has her hand up, so I'll wait to respond to my question.
Zena?
Yeah, I feel like at this point we've been talking about this for years, and I feel like if that's what the city wants to do, then maybe that's not part of what we do as an inclusivity committee, because that's something that I feel like, first off, I think that it's always important to be, learning and exploring those kinds of things on your own. But I thought that that would be helpful for the inclusivity committee. But if that's not the goal, then I feel like that just takes away our time. And that's really something that city council needs to figure out, and not something that should be part of this committee. If we're not going to be doing training or, yeah.
Thank you, Zena.
2 years on, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I think
camera's right there.
I know, I'm trying to reach over.
I don't know if you,
I think.
Rose has a hand up. I don't know
Oh,
if you-
sorry. Yeah, you're not.
He's off camera. But
Hi.
Rose. Hi.
So I think when we were originally talking about it 3 years ago, the thought was there would be training for the city staff and city council so that we can ensure that our city leaders have a complete understanding. So if I'm remembering correctly, the thought was that they would have that access to that training so that we're setting up our city leaders with a full understanding. And I'm sure everyone's at a different point in their learning about Jedi. But I think I like what Chris was saying with that it depends on the training. It could be a training just for the city leaders for like the $600 a day kind of thing, or if we're opening up to a broad across all community, committees, then it would be open to them. So I think having a variety would kind of hit each target audience that we originally were trying to do.
Thank you.
I would like to see an introductory person speaking to a group of us that would include this committee, because it seems silly to exclude this committee, in my opinion. I have not been around for a long time. But I would like to see, yes, city council, and yes, the office staff, but also our committee, and then if there's room for other interested people, invite them. But I would like to see that happen sooner. My goodness, 3 years.
And would that be offered to any member? So you don't have official committee members within the inclusivity committee. So how would we determine if we did like the 600 per person training?
No. I'm suggesting not do that. I'm suggesting we get some dynamic speaker that has a vast array of background and understanding to just talk about the problem, and these are ways we can address them and help to fix our community.
So like a broad, large
yes.
audience speaker.
Not a $600 a person thing, because that's.
See, if that was the case, I feel like what we've done with like the Shipley events, etc., are good examples of ways that we can have inclusion knowledge without it being such a public affair, because again, all this is recorded. And I think we talked about how having this recording, it might be, again, one of those things that maybe people want to not have as public. And so I'm like, I think it would be great if we could implement lots of more, the Black Pioneers and things like that are social education programs or lectures or speeches, or even our museum, things like that can really engage with all members of the community, and then have the training be something that the city committee does, and we could bring in lots of other speakers like we've been doing. I'd like to see more of that. And then it's less of a, hey, inclusivity committee, other people come and do this really intense training. I don't know. Just, I'm trying to say maybe we can meet people where we're all at.
Thank you. Yeah, so it would be great to have everyone involved, but the purpose is very much for council and staff to be on that, get the fundamentals, like Rose was saying, and Oriana.
I'm more in the lines of part of the goal of this committee is to make recommendations for possible policy changes and reviews of maybe bylaws and things like that that are rooted in like historical and systemic oppressive systems. So for us to be able to make those recommendations, those who make the actual change, city council, has to understand a basic fundamental of where that comes from. I do think that it would be pertinent for this committee to make a recommendation on that training so that it is a very intensive, probably therefore expensive workshop where people really dive deep into what white privilege means, what ableism is, and their role as city council members, as people in power, to be able to reflect, dismantle, and rebuild what a new, more inclusive and more equitable city looks like. So whether that includes this committee or not, I think that's like a second step. And the first step is figure out how to spend this money in a way that makes an actual change, which is what we want to see.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to be part of this committee. I work in the community college, but my role very much has a lot of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm also part of Oregon State University and a doctoral student where I work in higher education, in a program for higher education that really focuses on equity, diversity, and inclusion. So there is so much work, if we're starting from zero, that needs to be done before it can be expanded. Because if the people at the top don't have a fundamental understanding, then it won't trickle out. Not down, out. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Ariana.
Sorry, I'm just
Zena?
gonna ask, normally I know we take like a 5-minute break. Or is that not happening today, or?
I don't know if we've taken breaks in the past, but if we're going
Okay.
until 7, it might be a bit.
Okay,
much
and then that's fine. And I want to say, like, I'm hearing what other people are saying, but I also feel like this is such a change and a shift maybe about what we thought that this would be many years ago, and that I feel like our focus, in some way, it's again great to have training and things like that, but if we want to be more inclusive, then we have to look beyond that, because that is a very even systemic way of looking at it. And so I think that I'm not just going to say, as the only Black person that's ever been on this committee, I think that we need to look at how to be outside of the box. And I personally am not here to just look over what city council should be doing. I think that I really want to be more engaged with our community and not just checking boxes and being like, city council, what are you guys, we're looking over this proclamation. I think we can do better after 3 years and some really, again, good events, and shout out to Rose for the Pride event, that you're really meeting people. And so I do think it's important, again, for city council to be doing this kind of work, but I don't know if it's for us to micromanage that. I think our time could be spent in far better ways. I know, huge change, but it's been 3 years, so.
Thank you, Zena. I can say that I'm pretty sure the original intent was mainly to focus on council and staff. At least that has always been my impression. And I agree. And also, I think that because we are so still in the infancy of this as a city, like in our social justice journey, that this is a good first step. And that once we get the basics down, we can do more of the thinking outside of the box with regards to this. At least that's my opinion. So, Rose?
I don't think it's an either or situation. I think we can do the training for the city council and city staff. We can do training for an inclusivity committee. We can do training for community. We can do activities for community. I don't think we have to decide one over the other. I am recalling when we first started that some of the concerns were if the city pays for training, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, city pays for training, we have to make it open to the public or at least record it. And there was conversations about difficulties with that because essentially if you're starting at a foundation level of recognizing your privileges, you're going to put yourself in a very vulnerable space. And if we are recording it, if we are opening it up to the public, council members may not feel comfortable engaging in that space.
Yeah, if it doesn't have to, the city council set its own policy about putting meetings on YouTube and broadcasting meetings live. We've held, like our council orientation we didn't broadcast that. It's a public meeting because it's a public entity. So that we have to notify the public that they're meeting, but we don't have to broadcast it. So that would allow a little more.
So like for these trainings that we're talking about that are specifically for city council and city staff, would we get away with?
We wouldn't have to broadcast
announcing?
that, no. We would just notice it as a public meeting and the press would be able to attend. The public could attend, but if it was like a paid training type thing, then we could exclude the public from being there because they haven't paid to be there. So there's just depends on how the setup is.
Okay. Would the press be invited
Not they haven't
in that
paid.
case?
Yeah, not they haven't paid. So we'd notice it as a public meeting. Yeah, the press would probably be able to sit in the back room, and we'd have to be able to have them there if they wanted to be. But
Okay.
yeah.
Because I know sometimes, like in city council meetings, you guys go offline or have like closed
We have an
doors.
executive session,
Yes,
but
that.
there's specific criteria there, and like
Okay.
training for DEI is not one of those allowed.
What about attending a conference or a workshop that's not held at?
If it's individually, you can. As if you're doing it as a quorum, you have to notice it, and you have to let the public/press be available.
I think
Thank you.
I think there is a specific thing where if members of a government body are attending a training, you don't have to public notice it as long as no business is discussed, but it's really hard to clarify that. So we generally do it to be safe. Because also if we're talking about inclusivity in the city of Philomath, it'd be kind of weird if no city business were discussed in the training. But yeah.
Thank you. Chris, what do you suggest the committee bring to council as a recommendation of like the topic, actual people to see, like to have train? What would be most helpful?
In my view, it's not to use the term too loose, but kind of a more generic DEI entry level 101, diversity 101 training, right? And so I think there's a lot of different people out there that can provide that. Some probably better than others, some more local than others, some less expensive than others. So if this committee wants to vet those out a little bit and see if we can line somebody up who's interested in coming, get a price from them, and that doesn't necessarily even have to come all the way back to the committee. Just send that to me. I'll take a look at it and bring a recommendation here, and then we'll make a recommendation to the city council. So if we want to work on that individually over the next month, just send me information, and then at our next inclusivity committee meeting, we could say this is our recommendation. This would be our second choice, first choice, second choice. Send it to the city council, and I'll schedule it, and we'll have the training. So but that saves me doing a little bit of that work. I don't have the outreach that all of you collectively have, right? So if you can help do the outreach, people that you've heard before, we already heard one example of somebody from Nora, somebody that did it at the school district. I think Teresa Nilsson was at that event, and she was raving about it too, said it was a great 2-hour training that they had done. So yeah, I'd say that's maybe the homework assignment. Everybody's good at that. Which again, we kind of already did that, and the notes. I don't want to feel like we're repeating, but I think what we're really looking for is specific names of individuals that are willing to come to Philomath, do a 2, maybe 4-hour type thing, and what they would charge for it. That's the level of detail that really would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you for that. Is there anything else on this topic that people would like to discuss, or you know, we should really be looking for this type of aspect to the training or anything like that? Diane?
Yeah. I feel like everybody needs some sensitivity training, or some even vocabulary training. There's lots of training that needs to go on. But I felt in this discussion that there was an issue, it seemed like, with the city. Has there been issues that are specific that you can share? Or is it just general lack of knowledge?
Personally, I believe it's both. We've had our history with the Inclusivity Committee in the early days. We had some issues in particular then. It's a lot to go into. It's a very complicated past, but both.
And I would say the Inclusivity Committee was created as a result of community members sharing their, I was mad, honestly, that the city of Philomath did not make any kind of proclamation about racial reckoning or anything in the summer of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd, when every city in the valley put out some sort of statement, and Philomath wasn't saying anything.
Okay.
So that's why, so that's why we created the Inclusivity Committee, because from the outside looking in, it seemed like even just bare minimum was not happening. And getting to know our city staff and our city council, from my perspective, I think everybody's at a different place. So if we can get everybody at the same, maybe close to the same place, I think that would only help our city.
And I think that it's also important, like, there's been a lot of trauma and pain that's been caused in our city, and it's been a few rough years with this committee. And I think that it's important to, like, there's a past there and there's a long history, but I think it's important to look at where we want to go next. And I don't know, for me, I'm kind of in this place of just asking for more accountability. And I'm not here to, white shame anyone, or, but I think that there needs to be more acknowledgement around equity and in our community. So.
I understand that too, and I have my own little things. Obviously, women are the lack of women police officers and firefighters, for example, bother me. We are 50% or more of the population. What's going on? Why is that not working out? Anyway, that's one of my things, but there's so many areas here that we're talking about. And I fully admit, and this, please don't take down on me, that I am not seeing everything that's happening. That's why I'm asking for you to share with me. Our church right now is studying racial inclusivity, anyway. And one of the things that I learned, which I tried to share with a couple of people, I sent to Jessica and Christopher, I think, but I wasn't sure how to share it with people, is that, first of all, we need to realize our privilege, and privilege doesn't necessarily have a color. You can have privilege in all walks of life, anyway, but that our responsibility with privilege is to lift other people up and not to lot over them or treat anybody differently. And it was much better written in my email. I can't say it, but I think if we can realize that it's our job to help others and lift them up rather than judge them or put them down, whomever they are, for whatever reason. I've shared some of mine. But
Thank you. I will say that asking to share stories, while good intentioned, also can be difficult for people emotionally, especially if they have endured trauma. And so, especially asking so in a public space, like I understand where you're coming from. I would recommend not doing so unless building that, being in that safe one-on-one kind of space.
okay, I'm learning, and I can learn.
Y'all are.
Friendly suggestion.
It's fine. Yeah.
Um,
I don't know.
but thank you for your concern. So it is almost 7, and usually we end then. I don't think we're able to stay past 7, even if people wanted to. So the things we did not get to talk about were committee priorities and learning opportunities and celebrations that the city would like, that we would like to bring attention to and spotlight. Before the meeting ends, are there any questions about either of those things and or suggestions for topics to add to the next meeting? Meeting agenda. Diane?
Well, I would like for us to help finalize some training. If I don't think we should let it keep going on and on, kicking it down the road. I think we should do it. So if we will we search for some training, and then we can maybe make some decisions next time.
Yes. Yes, that has already been added. Anything else about this? We also have our eventual business of talking about proclamation and resolution procedures, but that does not have a time component to it the way that the other things do.
You initially talked about the budget. Was the idea of that $10,000, just leave it at that? I mean, and it's not all for just this diversity training. I assume that the city has the budget for it.
So initially $10,000, when the mayor had made the suggestion, it was, if I remember correctly, it was specifically for this kind of training.
Okay.
And then we've just kind of dipped into it when it has become apparent that we're not going to get to it that fiscal year. And we've used that for things like supporting Dr. Robert Bartlett. I think that was, oh no, maybe it wasn't. Sorry, that's probably a different line item. I don't remember what we've used it for. I think honorariums for past speakers.
We've used it more general just for council training. So going to League of Oregon Cities conferences and that sort of bit. So we've more generally just for training of city council, we've used that line item.
Thank you, Chris.
So the budget was just initially for training, not for like events.
Right, for training, which included diversity, equity, inclusion, but it also, when I put it in the budget, my thought was, rather than going $4,000 for DEI, let's do $10,000 so we can do what we need to for diversity, but also have money in there to attend conferences, 10 trainings, budget trainings. Some of that stuff is free, but some of the stuff they end up charging, $25 a person or $60 a person. So that kind of stuff adds up, and we've always had a little item there, but we made it much, much larger in order to do some diversity. So in short, I don't see, in my mind, I don't see us budgeting $10,000 every year for training. I think that that'll ebb and flow a little bit depending on if we have a bunch of new council members. If we, maybe like every 3 or 4 years we do that type of training, and then the off years, that budget is probably closer to maybe $3,000 or something.
Does the budget year start July 1st?
Yes.
So there's only 5 months, 4 months left. I would say, you asked earlier, should we budget another 10,000? And I would say yes, if we can, but we better use it, because then there's no reason to budget if we're not going to use it.
Well, if we use it between now and the end of June,
Right.
we won't need $10,000 next year because we'll have just done the training this year, right? So our budget, we try to be very reflective in our budget, that it really reflects what it is we're going to spend that year. It's not a placeholder so that we don't lose it for future years, right? So just because it drops down to 3,000 this year doesn't mean that a few years from now we can say, we think we need to have another diversity training and have somebody come in again. Let's add, let's figure out what that is, and let's ask for the $2,000 to have that training done. So it'll be flexible each year, which is, again, like this discussion tonight. Do we need to ask for money in next year's budget for training? And what I'm kind of hearing from this group is we'd rather try to do that training like soon, like between now and the end of June, with the current money that's in this year's budget, and then not necessarily make a big ask for training for next year, July 1st through June of 2024.
I suppose it will depend on, I suppose it'll depend also on the council and staff of being like when we're able to train, to schedule a thing. Sorry, Rose, you were saying?
I'm just thinking all the dollars are going towards training and not community events, not outreach, not anything like that. Is there any wiggle room or changing of how the money's split up?
Yeah, sorry. I was under the impression that we were going to use some of that money after Dr. Bartlett. We realized that there was kind of a call for that.
We've used this money to pay Oregon Black Pioneers to bring their exhibit to the museum. Well, we had targeted this money to go there, and then the museum ended up saying, we're just going to do it as a museum exhibit. We're happy to pay. They had other funds, so we didn't use it. But we've had this money available for community, I'll call them educational opportunities, or community presentations. Mm-hmm. We've used it as honorarium, in small amounts to thank guests for coming and speaking and providing information. So it's all encompassing. At the end of the day, the way the city budget works is, Juno, appreciate this. The city council has a budget as a department, and there's several line items there. You can mix and match the line items. It doesn't matter as long as that department budget doesn't go over what was allotted. So there's some wiggle room in that city council budget, but this is the line item that's dedicated for training, and the council gets kind of define what they consider training, right? If it's for themselves, for the community, if it's training and there's money there, the council can decide whether to do it or not. It's meant to be pretty flexible.
Thank you. Okay, if there isn't any more questions, as a reminder, please send, preferably before the meeting, send any sort of training information to myself and or Chris. And also, if you could review committee priorities, the goals and objectives sheet that we had come up with last year, and if you want to add something to it or say, hey, we want to prioritize this as a committee moving forward into the year, and then also spotlighting different learning opportunities based on holidays and events and celebrations and stuff. So, Chris?
Just real quick, if you don't mind me asking, as far as meeting date, real quick, Councilor Andrade, typically, traditionally, this committee's met on the fourth Tuesday of the month at this time slot. So maybe it's worth asking, is that a hardship on anybody on like a month? Does anybody have a monthly conflict where you like got out of it this month, but normally it would work? Or does this meeting time work for all of the current members that are present tonight?
It will be spring break next month, I believe, but I'm full of time. Doesn't bother me. But it might bother somebody else in the family.
Okay. As far as ongoing month to month, that fourth Tuesday of the month. So we'll plan on leaving it there. If we start seeing conflicts, it can always shift depending on the membership and what works for us. But administratively, Councilor Andrade, we'll go ahead and just plan on keeping that the fourth Tuesday of the month. Sometimes they're the fifth.
Yeah.
So we'll go the fourth Tuesday of every month.
Thank you. Christopher?
I was just gonna say, and it's fine if it doesn't work for anyone else, but the fourth Tuesday of the month I think works. The only thing that might be nice is if it were like a little later, like 6 p.m. instead of 5:30. But if that makes it harder for everyone else, then I'm happy to just deal with it. But I just wanted to put that out there because then I don't have enough time to actually get there in person. So I would just have to be remote for basically every meeting until July. But I can do that. It's just, yeah.
We'll just have shorter meetings, be more concise.
Or come in halfway like I did.
Last night.
Okay. Well, I guess if people are willing to change the meeting time, please email to let us know. Think about it and have a great evening. Enjoy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.